Bill, let's start here. Back in Berlin. What's the theme?
Back in Berlin, unity, togetherness, tolerance, inclusion, lifting the spirit, all about the music.
The music that you're going to have in the shows. I mean, people are going to really be impressed, I think, to come in here. And we talked last night a little bit about one band in particular from East Germany.
Well, Tokyo Hotel, interesting little history. Big group, especially in Germany, but throughout Europe. A lot of fun. Wait till you see the performance. All born in the East and all born in 1989, which reminds us that we have a lot of history going back to 89. But our audience has been born since '89. But this is an interesting connecting the dots with Tokyo Hotel. They're a terrific group.
Technology played a role in the fall of the wall, the transformation of people's attitudes all across the former Warsaw Pact countries. And MTV was a part of that. And it goes back to 1989.
It does. We went on the Astra transponder satellite, which was unique because it was a KU, which meant this dish, it was small. So suddenly, instead of having to have a big dish, you had a small dish, which meant that people could have access to programming that never had before. So not only did we go on Astra, we also kept it free to air. And we were the first to do that. So it started in January, and we rolled out through Europe, and we found that we actually had more distribution in Eastern Europe, in Central Europe, than we did in Western Europe. And we just flowed with the changes, which were so monumental and historical during that time period. And the culmination, of course, was East Berlin. And I was speaking November that week, and November 6th is when we finally hooked up MTV in East Berlin. So we actually had MTV hooked up in East Berlin before West Berlin. And, tongue-in-cheek, not to be taken seriously, the Politburo resigned that Tuesday of a reception I was supposed to go to. No one showed up. And 48 hours later, the wall came down. So we have that iconic photograph of the East German soldiers dancing on the Berlin Wall with an MTV umbrella. Now, all that's not to be taken seriously. It's all about the music, and we obviously didn't bring the wall down, but technology did play a role, yes.
There's another side to it, and that is that music is a universal language of youth.
Well, it was very much a powerful force, and you could feel change in the air. And, just getting back to the technology part for a second, it was an iron curtain. There was no cell phones, there was no internet, and there was no TV even. So to have a single suddenly go into an area and open it up, it wasn't probably as much about the programming, although music is a very powerful force. It was also, I think, about the commercials. So, I don't know, music replaced missiles. The red curtain became the red carpet in many ways. And it was driven by young people, no question. And the power of music and the power of youth and the power of culture, I think, was a confluence of events that helped it all. And I'll mention one other thing as it relates to the music tomorrow, because we're coming back at the Brandenburg Gate with a terrific performance by U2. And U2 is very significant for a number of reasons, one of which is because they were there also. And they wrote Achtung Baby during that same period when the wall came down. And one of their hits is One, which they're going to perform again tomorrow night. It's very moving against the Brandenburg Gate. It's going to be a terrific show. One has since become an anthem, really, of the power of one. And it connects the dots also with the power of people.
You have a background a lot of people don't know about, a military background. How does that play into your thoughts this week as you come, to see 20 years later a wall that's come down, a Warsaw Pact that no longer exists?
Well, I was blessed in my early days. I paid for my education. I went to West Point, and I served in Europe. I served in Vietnam first, and then Europe, and I was part of the NATO forces, and we had missile bases. And the missile bases obviously were directed toward Warsaw Pact countries. So, I look back on that, and it almost seems surreal. And I think, perhaps if we spent as much time and effort on music, which I've done for the last 20 years, that would be even a much more powerful force than whatever we spent on weapons. But for me, it's, once again, coming full circle, connecting the dots, and lifting a spirit, and just being privileged to be able to be part of lifting the spirit of not only Germans, East and West, but also Europeans, East and West, and bringing it together.
Final thoughts. Bill Roedy, is it time for other walls to come down? Walls of fear about HIV, fear and misinformation.
Yes.
Differences between people around the world. What role do you see MTV doing in that?
Well, we don't like to take ourselves too seriously. It's very important to say that we're not out to change the world, and we really aren't. We're just out to reflect the amazing diversity of all the cultures around the world, which we uniquely do because of all of our different channels. And we're here to play the music, and we're here to lift the spirit. That's really what we're all about. We are not here to change the world. Now, in our connection with young people around the world, and we do have the largest collection of channels, we're the most widely distributed, even more than CNN, probably close. But with that audience, which numbers, close to 2 billion potentially, we have an opportunity to tell stories and to connect with the audience in a deeper way. And some of those opportunities have become very important over the years, and one of which is you mentioned, and that is that we've been an important part, a very visible part of fighting the HIV/AIDS epidemic. Why? Because our audience is the most impacted by the epidemic. Further, we're distributed in areas that are the most hard-hit areas. So for us, it was never really an option to talk to young people and to tell them, and our aim is for 100% of our audience to be completely aware of the epidemic and to know how to prevent the transmission of HIV. And secondly, we fight very hard the stigma. There's no reason for the stigma, no excuse. And the stigma, it has a tangible hurt because it prohibits us from getting tested. No one wants to get tested because of the discrimination and the stigma. So we work very, very hard to move that needle as much as we can on the stigma and discrimination. We have a campaign that goes all across our networks. That's called the Staying Alive campaign. And then we also have a foundation, very interestingly, which fights the epidemic at the grassroots level, raises money, and then distributes grants. We're now in 100 countries, 120 different grants all around the world. These are entities or individuals even, young people, again, unselfishly giving their time that wouldn't have the money for an effort, and we get them up and running and sustain them for 3 years, establish them with a mentor, usually with the UN or an NGO, and then let them go their way. And I find that, even though it's at a grassroots level and smaller individually, even more inspirational than our fight on the campaign on the network. But thank you for asking, Jim.
A little final postscript, and that is, have we heard from any individuals who might show up here for an award tonight?
Well, no. Okay. The quick answer is no, but I'm still trying.
All right.
But I can say this, that we're leading up to the 20th anniversary on Monday. There will be something like 30 heads of state, a whole collection of Nobel Peace Prize winners. And Mr. Gorbachev will be here, and he's requested a meeting. So I look forward to actually meeting President Gorbachev sometime over the weekend.